Greetings, YouTube. Climate change is real. Now, since some of us haven't been sticking our heads in the sand and repeating over and over again that it isn't, hoping that, we'll click our heels and go back to a point in the past where the world wasn't getting radically warmer every single year. We just had the warmest October in history. And we've been having record warm years year after year after year. And we are already beginning to see the effects of climate on the world at large. We're beginning to see climate refugees. We're beginning to see more floods, more droughts, more radical weather, because we are pumping more energy into our weather system. It's that simple. If you put more energy into a system, you are going to get more radical results out of that system. And that's what we're doing. Higher highs, lower lows, rougher storms. And my wife and I anecdotally have noticed this. We've been here 15 years. And we can remember being here like the first year or so and a snowstorm on Halloween. And we don't get those anymore. And the winters are getting warmer over time. We've had less snow. It was much warmer last year. This year, I guess, is supposed to be a little bit on the cooler side, so maybe we'll get some more. And even if it's drier, if we get low enough temperatures, at least the folks up in the ski zones can make snow. Last year it was both it wasn't all that wet and it wasn't all that cold, so they had a horrible season last year because there was nothing for them to make. They couldn't make snow. It wasn't cold enough. This year I think they're going to be able to, which is good. But my wife pointed something out to me the other day, and it's something that I would have never known about at all, because I'm not into plants. We have a handful of plants in the bathroom. We have to keep them in the bathroom so the cats don't eat them. But my wife loves gardening, and she has gone to a great deal of effort to begin to change our entire the yard directly outside my house, from a lawn into a pasture. She is in the process of she has literally ripped up the entire lawn and laid down compost, mixed it in, and put in sunflower seeds. I put in wildflowers. And we've even put a sign outside telling people, if you don't like the way our lawn looks because it's not mowed, it's a pollination garden, which is a protected thing. You can't bitch about it. You can't call the city and say, hey, we don't like the fact that they don't have their yard mowed, because it's protected. You can't tell someone not to have a pollination yard. Not allowed. So we're doing that. She's gone through huge amounts of effort. But that's her thing. She likes doing that. Well, she tells me the other day that the planting zone categorization system, which helps planters know where they live, like what's the minimum temperature, like the low spot, so they know what they can plant, what they can't plant. Otherwise, you may have a great idea of planting stuff and discover that, I can't plant them here. I'm in a zone two ranges away from the minimum temperature this plant can handle. So if I put it in the ground, it may look good, but it's going to die. So you want plants that are in the proper zone temperatures. Okay, that makes sense. Well, they've upgraded the zone for where we live. We no longer live in the same planting zone as we did 10 years ago. And it's a small thing. It's a subtle thing. It's something that I would never, ever have known about it if she didn't tell me. But it's absolutely tangible. It is a real world thing you can literally put your fingers on, because you can't plant the things you want to plant anymore unless you move north. I read a book, and I can't even remember. It may have been a series of books, if I'm not correct, and it was set in the UK, and the end of our century, end of the 21st century, and a guy owned a citrus farm in England because that's how warm it was now. And yes, people still live there and people still got along, got along because it's now a different place, but I can guarantee you the folks at the equator didn't live there anymore because they couldn't. And that's where we're headed. We're headed to a future where humans will not be able to occupy the equator of this planet. And that's terrifying. Because those people are going to have to go someplace. And there's a whole lot of conservatives in the world that are not going to be welcoming them with open arms. Even though it is those same conservatives that have created the problems that have made the zones they used to live in uninhabitable. Capitalism is rendering our planet uninhabitable to humans. The planet will survive. It'll just keep chugging along. It's been warm before. It'll be warm again after this whole process cools down eventually, whether we're here or not. But I have grown somewhat fond of the human species, thanks to mental health support and pharmaceuticals that give me serotonin. I don't want to see my species eradicated. I may want to see my species be smarter about populations. I may want to see my species smarter about how we make things and how we throw things away and the ways that we fuel our, our lives, our energy requirements, where they come from. But I didn't necessarily just want to see our species snuffed out, which is unfortunately where we're headed, unless we do something. But this thing, it's a small thing, but it's a real thing. And it kind of came at me kind of blindsided me. Because she told me, and at first I'm like, uh-huh. But then I thought about it. And it was a little bit terrifying. So yeah, climate change is real. We have to do something. Otherwise, you're not going to have grandkids or great-grandkids because they're not going to want to live in this world. And if you're in the equator zone or, say, southern Florida, no one's going to be living there. We're going to lose southern Florida. It's just going to be gone. That whole peninsula is built on porous rock. You can't build seawalls around it. The ocean will just percolate up through the stones, through the very ground you stand on. And what are you going to tell the people of the future that do make it, that do survive by moving further and further towards the poles? They're going to ask their grandparents or their great-grandparents, why didn't you do something to stop this? Why did you let it just continue? And what are they going to say? I'm not going to be here to listen to their lame excuses. But they'll be lame.